Analyzing resources and capabilities. We all know strategy is concerned with matching a firm's resources and capabilities to the opportunities that arise in the external environment. So far, the emphasis of the book has been the identification of profit opportunities in the external environment of the firm. In this lesson, we will discuss the factors affecting the internal environment, explain resources of the firm, describe the organizational capabilities, and appraise resources and capabilities. After going through this presentation, you should be able to explain the factors affecting the internal environment, resources of the firm, organizational capabilities, appraising resources and capabilities, putting resource and capability analysis to work, and lastly, developing resources and capabilities. When the external environment is in a state of flux, the firm itself, in terms of its bundle of resources and capabilities, may be a much more stable basis on which to define its identity. In general, the greater the rate of change in a firm's external environment, the more likely it is that internal resources and capabilities will provide a secure foundation for long-term strategy. In fast-moving technology-based industries, new companies are built around specific technological capabilities. The markets where these capabilities are applied are a secondary consideration. The difficulties experienced by established firms in adjusting to technological change within their own markets are well documented. In typesetting and in disk drive manufacturing, successive technological waves have caused market leaders to falter and allowed new entrants to prosper. The resource-based approach has profound implications for companies' strategy formulation. When the primary concern of strategy was industry selection and positioning, companies tended to adopt similar strategies. The resource-based view, by contrast, emphasizes the uniqueness of each company and suggests that the key to profitability is not through doing the same as other firms, but rather through exploiting differences. Establishing competitive advantage involves formulating and implementing a strategy that exploits the uniqueness of a firm's portfolio of resources and capabilities. It is important to distinguish between the resources and the capabilities of the firm. Resources are the productive assets owned by the firm. Capabilities are what the firm can do. Tangible resources are the easiest to identify and evaluate. Financial resources and physical assets are identified and valued in the firm's financial statements. Yet, balance sheets are renowned for their propensity to obscure strategically relevant information and to under or overvalue assets. The primary goal of resource analysis is not to value a company's assets, but to understand their potential for creating competitive advantage. For most companies, intangible resources are more valuable than tangible resources. The value of a company's brands can be increased by extending the product or market scope over which the company markets those brands. Philip Morris is an expert at internationalizing its brand franchises. The human resource of the firm are the expertise and effort offered by its employees. Human resources do not appear on corporate balance sheets for the simple reason that people are not owned. They offer their services under employment contracts. Identifying and appraising the stock of human resources within a firm is complex and difficult. Human resources are appraised at the time of recruitment and throughout the period of employment. For example, through annual performance reviews. Companies are continually seeking more effective methods to assess the performance and potential of their employees. Our primary interest in those capabilities that can provide a basis for competitive advantage. Selznick used distinctive competence to describe those things that an organization does particularly well relative to its competitors. Prahlad and Hamill coined the term core competencies to distinguish those capabilities fundamental to a firm's strategy and performance. Core competencies, according to Hamill and Prahlad, are those that make a disproportionate contribution to ultimate customer value or to the efficiency with which the value is delivered and provide a basis for entering new markets. To identify a firm's capabilities, we need to have some basis for classifying and disaggregating its activities. A functional analysis identifies organizational capabilities in relation to each of the principal functional areas of the firm. This slide classifies the principal functions of the firm and identifies organizational capabilities pertaining to each function. Organizational capability requires the expertise of various individuals to be integrated with capital equipment, technology, and other resources. We examine capabilities from a functional or value chain approach. It is evident that broad functions or value chain activities can be disaggregated into more specialist capabilities performed by smaller teams of resources. What we observe is a hierarchy of capabilities where more general, broadly defined capabilities are formed from the integration of more specialized capabilities. The profits that a firm obtains from its resources and capabilities depend on three factors: the abilities to establish a competitive advantage, to sustain that competitive advantage, and to appropriate the returns to that competitive advantage. For a resource or capability to establish a competitive advantage, two conditions must be present. First, scarcity. If a resource or capability is widely available within the industry, then it may be essential to compete, but it will not be a sufficient basis for competitive advantage. Second is relevance. A resource or capability must be relevant to the key success factors in the market. Sustaining competitive advantage depends on whether resources and capabilities are durable and whether rivals can imitate the competitive advantage they offer. Resource and capabilities are imitable if they are transferable or replicable. The increasing pace of technological change is shortening the useful lifespan of most resources, including capital equipment and proprietary technologies. The simplest means of acquiring the resources and capabilities necessary for imitating another firm's strategy is to buy them. Next is appropriating the returns to competitive advantage. Who gains the returns generated by superior capabilities? We should normally expect that such returns accrue to the owner of that capability. The less clearly defined our property rights in resources and capabilities, the greater the importance of relative bargaining power in determining the division of returns between the firm and its individual members. In downplaying the role of individual expertise, they can improve their firm's potential for appropriating the returns to their capabilities. There are three steps in putting resources and capabilities analysis to work. Step 1. Identify the key resources and capabilities. To draw up a list of the firm's resources and capabilities, we can begin from outside or inside the firm. From an external focus, we begin with key success factors. What factors determine why some firms in an industry are more successful than others? And on what resources and capabilities are these success factors based? Step 2. Appraising resources and capabilities. Resources and capabilities need to be appraised against two key criteria. First is their importance. Which resources and capabilities are most important in conferring sustainable competitive advantage? Second, where are our strengths and weaknesses as compared with competitors? Step 3. Developing strategy implications. How do we exploit our key strengths most effectively? What do we do about our key weaknesses in terms of both upgrading them and reducing our vulnerability to them? Finally, what about our inconsequential strengths? Are these really superfluous, or are there ways in which we can deploy them to greater effect? Conventional approaches to developing resources and capabilities have emphasized gap analysis, identifying discrepancies between the current position and the desired future position, and then adopting policies to fill those gaps. First, relationship between resources and capabilities. Possibly the most difficult problem in developing capabilities is that we know little about the linkage between resources and capabilities. According to Hamill and Prahlad, it is not the size of a firm's resource base that is primary determinant of capability, but the firm's ability to leverage its resources. Second, replicating capabilities. Growing capabilities requires that the firm replicates them internally. Some of the world's most successful corporations are those that have been able to replicate their capabilities in different product and geographical markets. Third, developing new capabilities. Creating certain resources, a brand or an overseas distribution network, may be difficult, costly, and time-consuming, but at least the challenge can be comprehended and planned. Creating organizational capability poses a much higher level of difficulty. Fourth, approaches to capability development. So how do companies go about developing new capabilities? Company approaches capability by acquiring capabilities, accessing capabilities, and creating capabilities. Creating organizational capability requires first acquiring the necessary resources and second integrating these resources. Developing organizational capabilities is about building the know-how of the company, which requires integrating the knowledge of multiple organizational members. One of the most powerful tools for managing such a process is known as knowledge management. Now let us check if we have understood the various concepts discussed in this lesson clearly. The resource-based approach has profound implications for company strategy formulation. Right or wrong? Right. Organizational capability requires the expertise of various individuals to be integrated with capital, equipment, technology, and other resources. Right or wrong? Right. Growing capabilities requires that the firm replicates them internally. Right or wrong? Right. Before we end, let us briefly revise what we have studied till so far. In general, the greater the rate of change in a firm's external environment, the more likely it is that internal resources and capabilities will provide a secure foundation for long-term strategy. In fast-moving technology-based industries, new companies are built around specific technological capabilities. The resource-based view, by contrast, emphasizes the uniqueness of each company and suggests that the key to profitability is not through doing the same as other firms, but rather through exploiting differences. Establishing competitive advantage involves formulating and implementing a strategy that exploits the uniqueness of the firm's portfolio of resources and capabilities. Tangible resources are the easiest to identify and evaluate. Financial resources and physical assets are identified and valued in the firm's financial statements. The human resources of the firm are the expertise and effort offered by its employees. Our primary interest is in those capabilities that can provide a basis for competitive advantage. Organizational capability requires the expertise of various individuals to be integrated with the capital, equipment, technology, and other resources. The profits that a firm obtains from its resources and capabilities depends on three factors: the ability to establish a competitive advantage, to sustain that competitive advantage, and to appropriate the returns to that competitive advantage. There are three steps in putting resources and capability analysis to work. These are: identify the key resources and capabilities, appraising resources and capabilities, and lastly, developing strategy implications.